Part 1 in the Andes. Our group leaves the desert. We drive along popular family allotment gardens. Today we enter the mountains, starting at an elevation of just under 2,000 meters above sea level to climb to over 4,000 meters. We descend into a small valley that we will climb up. Along the way, for hours, we encounter only one green village. Traces of older settlements are visible here. Slowly we leave the valley for the plateau. There is some activity here and someone seems to live here. At an altitude of almost 4,000 meters, we finally encounter the famous wild camelids living there, a herd of guanacos. We reach today's first pass. Here we have an unplanned stop. It's not the first flat tire on this trip. This gives us the chance to observe the second species of wild camelids, the vicunas, known for their delicate and very expensive wool. The area is not very touristy, and it's good. In the distance, snowy peaks loom. Changes are in progress. The eternal snowline in the Andes keeps rising. Currently is over 5,000 meters above sea level. Noteworthy is the Ampato Peak, where the famous Inca mummy of a girl was found. Once again we reach civilization. After a whole day on gravel, it's nice to have a solid road. All in all, it wasn't pretty up there. These green villages are the most beautiful. The day is slowly ending, but we have another attraction planned. To reach it, we descend back onto a dirt road. The area is beautiful. Unfortunately, the road is getting worse. At the beginning, moving rocks helps. But from a certain point, we have to walk. Our goal is mountain Mucurca Lake. However, it's getting late, and we observe it from a distance. We still have to cover part of the return journey, some in not so good weather conditions. We reach our destination at night, or rather in the evening, as it gets dark around 6 here. Birdsongs wakes us up in the morning. It didn't bother us that someone shook the bed at night. After all, earthquakes are normal here. The town of Cabanaconde, overlooking the Colca Canyon, looks like something out of the fairy tale, at least from a distance. Up close, it also has its charm. In early morning we head to the observation point. The atmosphere is like the old Wild West. These lands was in isolation for centuries. Solid roads only appeared here in the mid-20th century. No wonder that the one of the world's deepest canyons, the Colca Canyon, was discovered for the world only in 1981 by a Polish kayaking expedition. The depth of the canyon reaches 3,200 meters. This achievement was recognized, and in the nearby town of Sibayo there is a plaque commemorating those events. We continue driving a few kilometers above the canyon walls. Our destination is the extremely popular tourist spot, the Condor Cross. In this place, every morning around 8 o'clock, you can admire the majestic Andean condors taking off for their feeding grounds. These enormous birds with a wingspan over 3 meters are unfortunately becoming rare. Riding the air currents, they soar toward the hunting grounds, sometimes up to 150 kilometers away on the ocean shore. The Andean condor is the largest flying bird on Earth. Every morning a lot of people comes there. This viewpoint is one of the biggest attractions in all of Peru. And if someone missed seeing the condors, the organizers made sure they see one anyway. Behind the Condor's Cross, the canyon floor rises, and the valley becomes wider. The agricultural terrain creates a colorful mosaic of terraced fields. This forms a beautiful and unique landscape, a heavenly and peaceful land. The road leading along the slopes slowly descends into the valley. There are plenty of eucalyptus trees brought from distant Australia, replacing local trees cut down by the Spanish. Tourists arrive at the Colca Canyon from this side. Smaller towns seem to thrive mainly on tourism. Monuments indicate that colonial heroes are falling out of favor. It's warm during the day. We additionally warm up in a quite pleasant thermal pools. Just think, in Europe, gloomy November is approaching. The water is really hot. After the bath, it's time to continue the journey. Llamas and alpacas are domestic animals. Avoiding local repairs, we continue further up the Colca River, encountering charming little villages at every step. We are in the South America, and since almost every village has a soccer field. Today we stay overnight at an agritourism place. People live modestly here, and despite the nighttime temperature dropping to near freezing, there are holes in the walls and no one uses any heating, except plastic bottles with hot water near the legs. The older part of the village is carefully renovated. There are lanterns, trash bins and tourist trails, but there are no tourists at all. A few hours before the evening, we take a walk around the area. This is our highest accommodation at an altitude of almost 4,000 meters. At night, a stack of blankets gives us a hard time, both protecting us from the cold and suffocating with their weight. The locals don't mind that we don't speak Spanish. The conversation goes on. Another beautiful day begins, and we continue on our way. There are plenty of trucks around us. The Sibayo region is a mining area. On the Colca River, flocks of flamingos are feeding. Today, we have quite a distance to cover. We head onto a dirt road, immediately ascending upwards. The traffic is significant, dominated by large trucks. We quickly reach an altitude of almost 5,000 meters. As far as the eye can see, the landscape resembles a semi-desert. At the highest point there seems to be a quarry. Among countless bird species in Peru, there are blue-beak ducks. Ascending a bit to an artificial lake, the gravel road is quite decent and we are making good progress. From Condoroma town, we continue along the main road. We enter vast agricultural areas. After a few more kilometers, we reach the town of Espinar, which also thrives on the mining industry. Here we take a detour and go up the Apurimac River. There lies a beautifully situated archaeological site, the town of the Vari culture and later the Inca. These ruins were restored about 10 years ago and prepared for tourism. Unfortunately, probably due to growing mining industry, the project seems to have withered. Currently, besides shepherds, it's hard to encounter anyone. Service points, parking lots, and even bridges have fallen into ruins. We can admire the ruins alone in peace. However, the attractions in this area are not over. A bit further up the Apurimac River is an extraordinary viewpoint, the so-called Three Canyons. The experience is once more something out of a Wild West. And again there is a large parking lot, an information hut, and no one. The situation looks alike on another side of the town of Espinar, in other archaeological site, Canamarca. It also has a rich history. The city was founded before the Incas by the Cana culture. Later on it was incorporated into the Inca Empire and later utilized by the Spanish. The round structures are not the bases of windmills, but food storehouses. It's evening and it's time to head for accommodation. Today it will be the town called Checacupe. Just a short stop and we observe the sunset over the mountain lake Langui. At breakfast we check our blood oxygen saturation because today we are to reach the highest point of our trip. A short stop in the center of Checacupe to see a very nice bridge, and we start to our journey into the mountains. First through a valley covered with eucalyptus groves and higher and higher over a nice village. The valley narrows at times, forming tight canyons, and the road climbs quite high on the slopes. We reach an altitude of about 4,000 meters above sea level. Of course we met herds of alpacas and llamas. We give candies to a shepherd girl we encounter. The child is very happy. This road ends near the ridge, so we'll be returning through it later today. For now we have to climb another kilometer up. The forest changes to grassy slopes. We reach the checkpoint where we are registered and pay a fee. Finally, we drive to the main parking lot near a pond transformed into a heart. Our guide ensures that we don't get too tired. The last 300 meters of elevation we travel as passengers on motorcycles. It's actually quite funny. We only have about 50 meters of the ascent left on foot. The goal of today's excursion is the Vinicunca Pass and the Vinicunca Hill. Layers of rock containing various minerals have created a beautiful and colorful mosaic. It's currently one of the most important tourist attractions in Peru, which is interesting. It has only gained recognition in the last few years. Between 2012 and 15, someone posted a photo on a Facebook and it took off. And why wasn't it known earlier? Well, before the climate change, the entire place was under eternal snow. The snowy peak still dominates over the area. It's one of the sacred mountains of the Incas. The drawback of this place is the increasing crowding every year. But to enjoy the wonderful majesty of the mountains, it probably suffices to veer half a kilometer to the side we don't have time for. As you can see, there are various methods to reach the pass. The walk downhill is light and enjoyable. We truly regret not having more time to wander around those mountains. Again, we check our oxygen saturation. The best among us has 96%. Wow, just like at sea level. It's time to return to slightly lower areas. We descend into the valley towards Chekakupe. In the afternoon, there is only the journey left. We travel down the Urubamba River, which will accompany us for the next few days. The destination is the town of Pisac, where we stay for a night. The little hotel was probably quite exclusive in its heyday, but it likely declined during the COVID times. We arrived quite early, so we descend to the town for something called the Indian market. Of course, it turns out to be a sale of junk for tourists. You can find the usual items, but at slightly lower prices. We return with a moto taxi. We start a new sunny day by exploring the ruins of the Inca city. People lived here even before the Incas, but what we can see was built by the Incas in the 15th century. This multifunctional city supposedly protected the sacred valley from the south. We can admire the incredible Inca stonework. At the highest point there is a temple area. Descending towards the valley, there are agricultural terraces. We stroll along a path, enjoying beautiful views. These ruins are obviously less known than Machu Picchu, but there is still much to see, especially since it's just a stone's throw from Cuzco. Among the various attractions of Peru, guinea pigs are well known. They are known elsewhere, but here you can eat them grilled. Oh, look, maybe this one, or perhaps that one. We buy one, more for a taste test, especially since they are not cheap. And what are the conclusions? Honestly speaking, not much meat, and the overall taste, it's not really fantastic. We have some spare time, and there is a museum by the road. There are hardly any people there, and we can check out various reconstructions. The cultures of the Central Andes are among the oldest in the world. The conquistadors encountered the Inca Empire in this region, but it didn't emerge suddenly out of nothing. It was preceded by many older cultures. The Incas built on their experience and traditions, as depicted on this pyramid. This is a reconstruction of the quipu, the knotted writing system of the Incas. After another hour of travel, we approach the beautiful historical town of Ollantaytambo. This city was built on the ruins of an Inca settlement. The lower parts of the walls, functioning drains, and niches are directly the work of Inca builders. Supposedly, The longest inhabited houses in all of South America are found here. Through the town we head to the main historical part, the Inca citadel. Here tourists abound. Allegedly, those rising terraces did not serve an agricultural purpose, nor were they, as the Spaniards thought, a fortress. The entire complex had a religious character. A large part was dismantled by the Spanish and later reconstructed. Here is the original Inca work. The precision of stone fitting is incredible. Those niches have strange acoustics. And here is the altar wall made of 6 large blocks. Unfortunately, the original symbols are a bit worn. We will return to Ollantaytambo on our journey, but for now it's time to change the climate a bit. Before we head down, it's time to climb up. We ascend about 1.5 kilometers on steep switchbacks. For the last time in our journey, we climbed to over 4,000 meters. On the other side of Abra Málaga Pass, the weather changes completely. The terrain descends from snowy peaks to evergreen jungle. In an hour or so, we can descend 4,000 meters down this valley. See for yourselves. It's a truly magnificent place. When we reach the bottom, it's already dark, and it's very warm and humid. We buy some fruits, and the selection is truly stunning. Meanwhile, in the town of Quillabamba, Halloween is in full swing. Here too, those customs have arrived. Children run for candies. A bit older people spend the free evening differently. You will see in a moment. Just as dawn breaks, we are on the move. Today we are about to find Andean Cock of the Rock. We first encounter stragglers from the large discos. Wow, there was a party! The Andean Cock of the Rock, or the rock rooster, is very characteristic bird. It has even been chosen as the national bird of Peru. We will look for it in the back of allotment gardens. It's so-called high jungle. For example, this is coffee, not yet ripe. It's definitely not European mushrooms. Looks like Predator movie jungle, but you can feel it's back of the gardens. This is the famous coca plants. Sangre de grado or dragon's blood has antiseptic properties. And this is the local host's dog. We go down to the river. Supposedly, the Cock of the Rock hides somewhere here. There it is! Some bird, but wrong color. There are various nests in the trees. Insects, birds' nests. We even managed to photograph a hummingbird. Not blurry, but there is no sign of the Cock of the Rock. Well, let's look in another place. We go even lower along the Urubamba, stopping at a local factory of something so loved by every tourist. Fortunately, this time it's a chocolate factory. The local Willy Wonka explained to us how cocoa beans are obtained and processed. At the end we have an ice cream, chocolate one. The Urubamba River transforms into the Ucayali, which later becomes the Amazon. Regarding where to find the Cock of the Rock, we decide to ask the locals. But it's All Saints' Day and some of the locals are not able to talk. This lady talks a lot, but we hardly understand the Quechua language. This one probably thinks about regular rooster. Ultimately, instead of the bird, we find quite interesting waterfall. After signing up and paying the fee, again, we head on a difficult and dangerous trail towards the waterfall. It turns out to be quite impressive. On the way back, we stopped by another waterfall, this time suitable for swimming. The surroundings of Quillabamba are really a cool place to live. Oh, even the Cock of the Rock seems to have been found. Nope. It hides in the jungle and mocks us. In the morning, we visit a small museum dedicated to the disappearing cultures of this region of the Amazon. It's not a place crowded with tourists or anyone. It's time to leave the charming Qillabamba. Maybe move here permanently. Today's plan mainly involves not a very long journey, but it won't be easy. Cars are allowed onto the construction road briefly around 12. Construction is ongoing. It will be ready in a year or 2 or 3. So far, traveling through this valley is an adventure in itself. A train passed through here, built in the 1930s, but it doesn't run anymore. Something collapsed as well as here. I think the only crossing is somewhere below. A bit of zigzagging and we managed to reach the right place. This is the station where the train currently terminates. This line is very short and leads to Machu Picchu, which is above us. So we switch to the train and go. For Europeans, the checking of passengers with a checklist by name seems a bit strange. Hikers end up the Salcantay Trail, an alternative to the Inca Trail. We quickly reach Aguas Calientes, hot waters. The town was originally a small support base for the construction of the railway line. Now its only function is to handle the crowds of tourists visiting Machu Picchu. We even visit the hot springs. Nothing really interesting. The giant, almost colossal bazaar is mind-blowing. You can buy the same trinkets as everywhere, but for 3 times the price. We sleep over the smoking and noisy railway station. At dawn we report to the bus stop. There is no external access road. Buses were brought in by train. They climb, twisting up the gravel road to the most famous attraction in Peru and South America. You can't even bring a tripod here. A bit on flat ground and 100 meters uphill, and we are there. It's Machu Picchu. Everyone knows this view. The current name means Old Peak. The original Quechua name was Mucurca, elevated city. This city was built in the 15th century and inhabited by less than 1,000 people. It functioned for only about 80 years. It was abandoned and forgotten after the arrival of the conquistadors, but not due to their direct actions. The Spanish never discovered this city. It was found again in the 20th century. We walk between the buildings. The ruins are now home to vizcachas, the local chinchillas. This was supposedly the Temple of the Sun. From every side of the city, agricultural terraces steeply descend. Regardless of Inca ruins, it must be admitted that this place is simply beautiful. On this small hill is the in Tihuatana, a sacred Inca's astronomical clock. Unfortunately, we won't climb Huayna Picchu. Half a year ago we didn't know that tickets had to be reserved. We explored the lower part of the city, the workshop area, pedals that serve for star observation. We take a look at the so-called Condor Rock and slowly finish the tour. Maybe this tourist attraction is a bit cliché, but it's really worth it. We have a short break before departure, otherwise we won't get out here except by train. Both before entering the station and before entering the carriage, we must identify ourselves. Of course, we had to buy tickets much earlier. We go up the Urubamba narrow valley. The views are breathtaking. It's really not worth sleeping. Visiting Cuzco, this train journey, and seeing Machu Picchu are the entire program for many on the trip to Peru. For us, it's just a small part of it. The railway line leads to Cuzco, but we get off earlier. Here it is, Ollantaytambo station. We were here a few days ago. We continue by car to Cuzco itself. On the way, apart from the mountains, we see fertile agriculture plains. Finally we reach the city and our hotel. Cuzco is quite high. Travelers arriving directly here often have health problems. We visit the Dominican monastery built by the conquistadors directly on the ruins of Coricancha, a magnificent Inca temple that was plundered. We take a taxi to the Inca religious cultural complex located above the city. The largest stones of its construction weighed up to 350 tons. Cuzco was built on the site of the Inca capital. From this hill, the panorama of the entire city is clearly visible. We go down to the maze of old town streets. This is, of course, the work of the Spaniards. This is a typically touristy part. There are plenty of stalls, eateries and locals in folk costumes, but more for show. We look at the colonial aqueduct of Zapatiana. Then we wander around the old town. In many places the foundations of houses are the work of the Incas. Plaza de Armas is the central point of the old town. There is a beautiful cathedral next to it, but you can't take pictures inside. Today is the anniversary of the execution of Tupac Amaru, the leader of the unsuccessful Inca uprising. Locals pay him homage. For us, it's not the end of the trip, because we are flying to the Amazon. I invite you to watch the next 2 episodes, in the desert and in the Amazon.